Write down the activity, your goal, your actual, your percentage, and then celebrate, reward yourself. And celebration can be as simple as high five. Yay, I did what I said I was going to do. I'm giving myself a sticker. And this just helps to keep you on track and moving forward. And again, it's all about progress, not perfection. This portion of the Harness the Power of Planning podcast is devoted to doing a monthly course correct. This is a practice that I do every month, and it is one of the things that I fought for a long time, but once I started doing it regularly, I really saw the benefit of it in terms of keeping me on track as I move from month to month to month, and I'm working on big goals that I want to accomplish in a year. The monthly course correct is key. So listen up for this monthly course correct and mark this page so that you can come back every month and do this monthly course correct with me. Starting now. So a monthly course correct is a review of your month. And it is so helpful because let's just go back to the new year. Maybe you set some goals for yourself. I'm not a big new year goal setter. That's not how I think about my goals. But let's just say if you set some goals for yourself, and then a lot of people, they set the goals and then it's like they walk away and they expect the goals to accomplish themselves. And as we all know, that does not happen. So what is great about doing a monthly course correct is it reminds you of what you told yourself you were going to work on. And it keeps you accountable in terms of, did you actually do the work that you said you wanted to do? And this is all about you. This is all about keeping yourself accountable because no one else is going to. And no one else is going to set your goals for you. So monthly course correct is a fantastic way to just keep yourself on track. And I call it a course correct because during the big race to the moon that was happening, 50, 60 years ago, tens of thousands of man hours were spent getting those spaceships up and into space. And they knew exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to get to the moon, and they knew exactly how they were going to get there. They had a plan and they had a path. But even knowing where they're going, so their goal and what their path is, the course, they built in course corrects into their navigation plan because space, it's a big place. And if you're off by 1 degree at the beginning, that means you're off by, many, many miles at the end if you keep going on that wrong course. And so that's why it's called a course correct, because even when you're on the right path, even when you know what your goal is, sometimes you just need to tweak and tweak and tweak to ensure that you stay on course. So what are your tools for the course correct? Well, this printable that you can get at tinyurl.com/BYWD, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, course correct, all one word. Then I would recommend grabbing a pen. And I like to use a fountain pen because I think it's fun to write with fountain pens. And anything you can do to make this experience more fun for you is good. Because if it's fun, you're going to do it, right? And so here's one of my pens. And I also like to use a specific color ink with my fountain pen. I like this Waterman Mysterious Blue. It's a lovely color. And again, this just makes it fun for me to do the writing. So find a pen that you like to write with. If you want, get a fountain pen. There are all kinds of them. I recommend vintage ones because the quality of the nib does matter. It is different. So get a good quality nib because a good quality nib will make you feel like you're writing in butter. A bad quality nib makes you feel like you're like dragging a pen across the page. It's really painful. It's the difference is gliding versus tearing into the paper. Then you also might want some colored pencils or markers. I have mine here in my Elena of Avalor pencil case that I bought for my daughter about 10 years ago, and I've kept. She outgrew it a long time ago, but you know what? Growing up in the 70s and 80s, I did not have Disney characters who looked like me. So now that they do, I get very excited. So Elena of Avalor pencil case. And you also might want some stickers. I am not a big sticker person, but I love these stickers. They're these rainbow hologram stickers for those listening to the audio podcast only. And they're just very motivating for me. I love putting these on my planner. They just make it so much more fun and colorful and exciting to work with. So let's see. The first part of the monthly course correct is just writing down the month. And so I'm going to talk about the steps of the course correct and also the things that you might include on there and why. So this is for May. And the first question is my accomplishments, what made me happy and or proud, big and small. So I find this incredibly valuable because humans have a cognitive bias known as recency. We have many cognitive biases, and a lot of them are just based on how our brain is structured. And our brain is just structured to remember things that happened most recently better. And I think that makes sense. I think we can all agree. Oh yeah, I can remember I kind of can remember what I did yesterday, and I can remember that better than what I did last week, and definitely better than what I did a month ago. And so the reason why it's important to write down your accomplishments is humans have a tendency to be negative, and it's because it's because we live finite lives. And so we're kind of always worried about surviving. I was an anthropology major in undergrad, and so I always think about how we were designed, how we were programmed to live, because the reality is that although our world has changed a lot in the last 100 years, our programming, our DNA, the way we're designed to work has not. And ancient man, which is the programming we're still running, they were concerned, am I going to have enough food? That was their big concern. And so we're kind of always prepared for the negative. And so what writing your accomplishments down does is it helps to counteract that inherent negativity and remind you, oh, look at all the great things that happened to me this month. And I encourage you to write down things big and small. For instance, anything that is helping you to move forward your goals is an accomplishment. So I have a goal of staying in touch with friends and family who are out of town. And in order to do that, every week I write down someone's name and I call that person to re-engage with them. And then when I do that phone call, I give myself a sticker, one of these rainbow stickers, because I did what I said I was going to do. And then when I do my monthly course correct, I write down, spoke to cousin Susanna. Great conversation. So happy to hear about her kiddo's success. That's how small the accomplishment can be for you to recognize it. And guess what? It feels good. It reminds me of that phone call and the feelings that I have towards this cousin. And that's wonderful. So it doesn't have to be, sold a $10 million building. That's not the only accomplishment I want you to write down. I want you to write down anything that helps you live the life you want to live. So whether or not that's calls with friends and family, maybe that's date nights, maybe that is a fun day with your kiddo, maybe that is a fun day for yourself. I actually did something really incredible in May, which was I sang at Carnegie Hall, which I know is like a huge thing if you think about it, but it wasn't something that I've been working towards my whole life. It actually all came out of a self-care practice that I've had for a number of years, which is singing in a choir. I've sang in a choir since I was about 8 years old. I love choral singing as a community experience, and I never thought that singing in a choir would lead me to Carnegie Hall, but it did. I talk about it at great length in the last episode, I think episode 107 of the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. You can also see my 3-minute video on my week in New York. So that was amazing. That was a big thing. But Another thing that I did was I booked the date for my next comedy show. So I produce a comedy show here in Los Angeles called Soy Saucy. It features all Latin and Asian comedians because I myself am Latin and Asian, and I thought that would be fun. And what is more Los Angeles than tacos and boba? So I booked my second show. This is a goal I've been working towards, booking a comedy show. I've been working towards this for about 2.5 years. And my goal was to do 4 in 2025. I think I'm only going to do 2 because I just want them to be great. And that's what I have the bandwidth for. And you know what? That's fine. Hey, 2 is more than 0. And I would consider that a win. But you notice I'm rewarding myself just for booking the date. The comedy show hasn't even happened. It's not until September 7th. It's many months away. But I booked the date, and that is something to be rewarded because that makes it much more likely to happen. I've also booked all the comedians, which I'm writing that down as accomplishment too. So that was fantastic. So these are the sorts of things I want you to write down as your accomplishments, big and small. Okay. There's a question just at the bottom of the accomplishments that says, did I reward myself for the above? Now, rewards are something I talk about in the life design course that I have, It's also called Harness the Power of Planning. It's a 6-session life design course. You can find out more about that on my website. And some people do really well with rewards. Other people are not motivated by rewards. A reward can be as small as a sticker, honestly. A reward can also be doing something more efficiently, and therefore you just have more time to yourself. So if you find rewards motivational, great, use them. They don't have to be big. When I have fallen off the exercise routine and worked to get back into it, one of the things I've rewarded myself with have been a new pair of socks if I exercise as many days in a month as I say I'm going to exercise. So they don't have to be big things, but that's that question there. Okay. Number 2, my insights. What did I learn about myself, my habits? Well, I read a book called The Big Leap in May, and it was fascinating because it talks about self-sabotage in a way that I had never heard, and I learned something about my own form of self-sabotage, and that was very insightful. I've also well, this is kind of into June, so I'm gonna say for June I'm gonna make a note for June, uh, about this book that I'm reading, but I'll just mention it here. So, I've been reading this book, and it's called Spying on the South, and in this book, a journalist retraces the path of a gentleman who explored the South 170 years prior. And what I noticed about that was that he kept commenting on how much that early explorer, his name's Frank Homestead, he's actually the gentleman who ended up designing Central Park, but this was well before he designed Central Park. And Homestead he reads from Homestead's letters. And what I noticed about that is that back in the day when we all had a habit of writing letters or journals more, I feel like there was a lot more self-reflection. And I've been doing a lot more reflecting lately. In fact, I re-engaged with a habit of doing a writing prompt every morning. And I have found that to be very productive in terms of clarifying my thinking. And so that was something else that I learned about myself. So write that down. And the great thing about writing down what you've learned is it helps cement it in your brain even more. You might have made an interesting connection while you were driving, but because you didn't write it down, it might kind of be lost to the background. But by writing it down, it helps really cement it in your brain better. And I like to go back and read at the end of the year, I go back and peruse my monthly course corrects, and then it helps me review it and remind me once again, oh right, here's this thing that I thought was really important in the moment. But if you don't capture it, it can just kind of flit away. So that's why that question is included on the course correct. This is kind of in tandem, books, articles, podcasts you read or listened to, what did you learn? A lot of times I find that there's a lot of synergy between these 2 questions. So again, I'm gonna write down these 2 books and what I learned from them. And by the way, if you're not a huge reader, audiobooks are amazing. I probably listen to more books than I read at this point because you can listen in the car. And pro tip, you can also turn a lot of books. Maybe a book has not been turned into an audiobook officially, but if you have an iPhone, I know you can turn on the accessibility feature, which will read a book to you. The voice is robotic, but as long as that doesn't bother you, hey, instant audiobook. And podcasts are also great ways to learn about things. So seek those out. My inspiration, who inspired me, who championed me, I am definitely inspired by these authors, but I've also been inspired by a couple of people who've really been helpful to me in terms of my business and championing my productivity and time management training that I do out in the world, both at conferences and at businesses. So I'm going to write their names down. And both of these people I've already sent thank you notes to. So that's, crossed off my list. But maybe if the people that you put down in your inspiration, if it's someone you know personally, maybe write them a thank you note. It's such a nice thing to do. One of my favorite ways actually to send thank you notes is to use a service called TouchNote. And TouchNote allows you to create thank you cards or postcards, one-offs. And often what I'll do is I'll include a picture of us or of us doing something together. And then I'll just write a little note and dash it off. And it just happens so much easier and faster that way. Touchnote.com, huge fan of that. And so sending a thank you note is just a really nice way to show your appreciation. Okay, next question. Any distractions, fears, or mental blocks? This is a great opportunity to look inside and be honest with yourself about fears you have. And I have been having a fear. Sometimes this area is blank and that's fine, but there has been a fear coming up. And I think it's because I am working towards a really, really big goal, a big financial goal. And there's a certain amount of risk on my part. And I think that is bringing up some fears. But you know what? Fears don't go away by ignoring them. That's been my experience in my 50 years of living. So admit your fears. It is empowering. And also, when you admit your fear, then you can figure out a way to solve it. Maybe solving it, one of my favorite things to do is Stoic philosophy. So I might look up some Stoic philosophy related to this fear. Another thing you can do is just look for a podcast or a book or you know, do a search for how to overcome a fear of blank. And in my experience, the only way to overcome fears is head on. So hopefully that inspires you to do that. Self-care is the next question. What did I do to care for myself? If you've heard me talk, I think self-care is so important. I just like to imagine if everyone felt like they were taking care of their needs, how much happier would the world be? And by you taking care of your needs, you are increasing the happiness in the world just in that way. So don't, prioritize self-care. It is so important. And sometimes you get things out of self-care that you don't imagine getting. Like self-care is just, I find it to be a great time to just practice mindfulness, to just be alone with my thoughts. When I'm doing my skincare routine, I am processing ideas and memories, and it's just a nice, slow, mindful way to spend time with myself. It feels really good because when you are touching yourself, even simple things like putting on skincare, it's actually releasing all sorts of feel-good hormones in your body, feel-good chemicals in your body, and it's just great to go out into the day feeling good. So, self-care, very important. I'm always doing self-care. One of my favorite things personally is going to the Korean spa, which I don't think I did it in May. I did it in April. I try to do it on a monthly basis, but my New York trip made that difficult. So, self-care. I'm always doing hikes every week, exercise, skincare. Self-care doesn't have to be going and getting a massage or anything. It can be as simple as taking a nap can be self-care. So, okay, next question. What didn't happen? What will I do differently next month? And then there's a subnote. Remember, this might not always be stick to the plan. It may mean to alter the plan. So, what didn't happen? This is kind of the core of the course correct. This is where you remind yourself, I said I was going to do this thing and I didn't. And guess what? There are two possible paths to take. Either you recommit to that thing and you work it into your next month's plan, or if this is the third or fourth or fifth month that you have not done this thing, maybe you ask yourself, do I even really want to do this? This goes back to me talking about the fact that prioritization is such an important part of planning, and it's a part that a lot of people skip. Is this important to me? Our world is very loud. And so it can be easy to take on the expectations of your family, your culture, your country. But is that what you want? Is that what feels true to you? And if not, give yourself permission to release the thing. Goals change. When I closed my store, I used to own a store called Green and Greener. I loved it. It was like walking into my dream every day. Unfortunately, the internet and online shopping made it so that I had to close the store. And then for a handful of years, I was mostly mom, and I was trying to figure out what to do next. And during that time, I had the opportunity to teach cooking classes at a local community college. And that was going really well. It was fun. I enjoyed it, but it didn't feel quite right. And everyone kept asking me, well, when's your cookbook going to come out? When's your cookbook coming out? And I also invented a food product at some point, and it was being sold, and that was doing really well. And I kept writing down this goal of writing a cookbook, and years passed. And then I realized that's not what I wanted my legacy to be. I did not want food to be my legacy. I love food, but it wasn't what I wanted to focus on. And everyone had been expecting a cookbook from me. So I had taken that on as a goal for myself. But I realized I didn't want to write a cookbook. No, what I wanted to write were these guys, these time management productivity short reads that I've written and that I am working on another one. So let go of goals that maybe they were never your goals to begin with, or maybe they were goals from a you that no longer exists. Let go of them. Finally, an overview for the month. Maybe there was an overarching theme or something that you really liked about this month. That's what that space is for, to just write a final takeaway from your month. And then the flip side of the course correct is what I call a control panel. Again, going back to a spaceship and its control panels. And this is just a fun visual way to look at your month. And this is where I break out the colored pencils. And I especially love using the colored pencils on the assessment wheel. And so here's the assessment wheel. It has these pie wedges. And this is kind of just a fun quantitative way to think about your month. And what I love about this is that once you've been doing it for a while, you start to see the ebbs and flows of the month. So, in my many years of doing a monthly course correct, I can only remember a few months where every single pie wedge was filled out to a 10. So I've probably been doing this monthly course correct now for 7 or 8 years. So only 3 times in 8 years, that means I've done 96 course corrects. So you see, only 3 times have I pegged it to the max, to the 10. And that's really helpful to just remember that, look, every month is not going to be 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. That's just, that's just not realistic. But it's also fun to see your progress in things. Like, I feel like I've really been doing really well with my health, which I feel like I've been working back on my health ever since my father passed away 5 years ago. And also, I've gotten really a lot deeper into perimenopause, so that's been something that I've really been working on. And so you just fill it in using different colors, and then the funometer is, self-explanatory. Did you have fun? Because honestly, if you didn't have some fun this month, what's the point? There's always fun everywhere, whether it's a board game or doing some dance or exercise or hiking. I love my weekly hikes with my girlfriends. That is so fun to me. So, did you have fun? And what was my average integrity? Did I do what I said I was going to do? This is just you saying to yourself, I give myself a 5. I did half of what I said I was going to do. Whatever. Again, there's no judgment on this. This is just a snapshot of your life at this day and time. And by doing a snapshot every month, it gives you a great opportunity to look back and just say, oh, I improved. Or, oh, I'm a little lower. I want to give a little more effort next month. It's not about judgment. It's just about progress. It's about seeing your progress and where you are today. The only one here that requires a little more explanation is the monthly habit tracker. Every month, there are things that you're going to be working on because these things will move you towards your big life goals. And this is something I talk about at great length in the Harness the Power of Planning course. But anything that you want to improve, let's just make it a simple snapshot. Anything you want to improve, for instance, maybe you want to drink more water, get up earlier, see friends more often, anything that you're working towards. And maybe you want to make more sales calls. You are going to write that down as a monthly goal. And then every week, you're going to see how many days you can do that. And let's say you set a goal for yourself of you want to get in 20 days of exercise. So you'd have on your habit tracker here the monthly goal 20, and then you're keeping track of it over the month and you're writing down, so the activity would be exercise, your goal would have been 20, you count up how many actual days you did, so maybe it was 15 out of the 20, and then that percentage would be 75% because 15 of 20 is 75%. And I always tell people it's about progress, not perfection. If you hit 70% of your goal, I consider that a win. I would consider that sticker worthy. Give yourself a little sticker, high five yourself in the mirror. It's actually been shown that high-fiving yourself actually creates a positive chemical reaction in your body. So write down the activity, your goal, your percentage, and then celebrate, reward yourself. And celebration can be as simple as high five. Yay, I did what I said I was going to do. I'm giving myself a sticker. And this just helps to keep you on track and moving forward. And again, it's all about progress, not perfection. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe and rate my podcast. It really helps, and it's costs you nothing to do it. Just a simple boop. You can rate my podcast. I really appreciate it. And if you are ready to take your planning to the next level, consider checking out my course, the Harness the Power of Planning course. You can do an on-demand version at tinyurl.com/HPOP on demand. Hey, summer might be the perfect time to do this. It's 6 sessions. I recommend doing 1 session a week, so it's not a huge commitment. And summertime, hey, you could start the fall with a whole new vision for how you want to plan for the next year. And you don't have to wait for the new year to create a new plan for your life. The beginning of the month can be the new beginning. The beginning of the week can be the new beginning. Tomorrow can be the new beginning. Any time is a great chance to work on who it is that you want to be. Thank you for joining me. And as always, remember, planning makes everything easier. Thanks for listening to the Harness the Power of Planning podcast. Be sure to rate and like and subscribe and do all the things so that we can show up when you need us.